There's a deep-seated fear that I believe many of us have as choreographers or facilitators of dance with adults, that you're going to get bored, right? So you're going to create something that is entertaining to the adult mind.
Like a puzzle to be solved.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
What is that? That is mental. It is not a feeling space, right? But the thing about dancing movement that comes through Cuba or through Brazil or any aspect, you have to feel. The only way to find that feeling is by using your consciousness to bring the mind out of an analysis, achievement, ambition place and into a more experiential place. So like I've said this a million times, but when you're in kirtan, for example, in India, you're repeating a mantra over and over and over. And what that does, it's like meditation, for example. What that does is it creates a distinct separation between consciousness and ego. Ego wants entertainment, it wants achievement, it wants ambition. It will tell you, I'm bored, this is ridiculous, what are you doing? And then you have this other aspect of your being that is present in the experience. What I'm trying to do because of my background is create an environment that brings the dancer into an experiential place, an in the moment place, and in so doing opens your capacity to hear and feel the rhythm. And that kind of vulnerability and focus is actually a very beautiful way to approach dancing Cuban movement, African Cuban movement, which salsa is. Doesn't matter whether it's salsa or, samba from Brazil. It's all rooted in story and history. And so that vulnerability, but to get that out of people in the States, it takes a lot of cultivation. And it takes a lot of preparation of space, of music that guides you there, of getting you into your body so that you feel your muscles, you feel your alignment, and then you find the celebratory, playful, popular movements from that embodied place. But it's not just embodied physically, it's a kind of mental embodiedness as well. So it's mind body. And it is a bit radical, and that's why when some people come into my dance space, they're like, what the hell, lady? I just, quote, want to have fun, which to me, as I was saying earlier, is a checkout point. I just want to have fun. I throw up my hands. I don't want to know what's behind this. That when you're using African diasporic movement as a means of escape, or as a means of ambition, or as a means of this, that, you're missing. You're missing the you inside of it, the we inside of it, and the story inside of it. And as I was saying, every single piece of music that comes out of Cuba is laden and impregnated with the history of that place. So when you're dancing, you're touching into it. And it's amazing now because people are bringing in very powerful Afro-Cuban movements, rightly so, right? It's the dragon eating its tail, right? It came from that and now it's coming back more and more. But what I see on Instagram is people doing a movement for Legua, but clearly they don't know what that is and they've never studied it. Or they've taken a class that incorporated it solely for the purpose of being part of this trend. And the stripping away of the people and their history from the popular dances on that philosophical level is, I think, unfortunate, and I don't agree with it. It doesn't feel good to me. So what I'm trying to do is ask everything of you when you come into my dance space. you are going to understand that you're dancing a bigger dance, that you're dancing human story. And in so doing, you are having a profound experience of your own body. And so...
Well, that can be fun, so to speak.
Well, in the end, in the ultimate end, yes, it is so much fun. Yeah. But you have to go through these layers of struggle in order to feel the vulnerability necessary to try to understand how to move.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, and also redefining what does it mean to feel good. Like, that's what I mean by it can be fun, because what's happening really, I think, is redefining what fun is. Right? So that in the end, it's like actually what I enjoy or what feels good is that I'm in my body. What feels good is that I'm participating in something bigger than myself. What feels good is my growth or our growth or whatever. You know, it's not what feels good is I had a hard day and now I feel sexy for an hour and then I get to go home and ride that for a
and drink a bottle of wine.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I'm really trying to get people to kind of, you know, go home and like, eat some fruit and drink water and go to bed and start over, you know, and bring that consciousness that I'm talking about that was born out of growing up in all these different cults like Rajneesh and Erika and Oscar Echazo and all this stuff. That you bring that witnessing consciousness away from you. That's the dance's life piece. Is that you notice how you feel in your body, even if it's uncomfortable. Stay with it.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think something about going back to the stuff around the music is like the way that you teach, you can actually get a ton, as a student, you can get a ton out of it if you have almost no skill, you're at the very beginning, or you have a lot of skill, because even if you have no skill, you can be with the music and you can learn the rhythm and or whatever your access point is. And like that class that I was saying where there's no music for 15, 20 minutes, then there's a moment and she says, okay, let's listen to the music so that we can understand the timing. So then she plays the track. And the thing is that that's the first time that you're integrating the movement with the sound.
It's very cerebral.
It's very cerebral, which means like now there's the second exercise of pairing the movement with the sound. And of course the music is not just 1, 2, 3. So if you're trying to hit the actual, you're trying to have musicality, you're actually not on the exact counts that we're given because music isn't quite like that. And like then that becomes the thing, and it's so divorced from the way that you teach, where it's really music, rhythm, everything first, breath first, and then you can build layers on top of it, you know. And
it's just very tricky. And then when you put an adult in this situation, you know, what is it really doing? I mean, I think a lot of people will say, well, I'm exercising, well, I'm having fun, well, and I think people get a lot out of all this type of things. But I'm trying to do something quite radical. And I mean, we take you, for example, right? You were like a baby deer for a long time. You were finding your legs, you were finding your vision, like, where do I look? You were finding, for a long time, you didn't even understand how to feel your arms, because as a professional runner, arms are not really involved in the motion of what you're doing. So, and in dance, we're talking like, let's go 6 feet out of your fingertips and you're still feeling, right? So that was a big piece. And then, you know, it gets more and more technical. Articulation, feet, extension, vocabulary, back undulation, strength, strengthening. And now here we are working on all those things and adding expression. You have had the tenacity to feel utterly humiliated on this journey and also triumphant. But what's been so cool is that this is all happening as a kind of life journey alongside all of the things you're doing in the world.
Yeah.
And that is feeding, you know. And you can bring all your stuff to your dance. You can bring all your feelings, all your pain, all your joy. But what's great is that you can be in an environment, right? Like a retreat with me. And then there's a girl that just started 3 months ago, or a woman, I should say.
Yeah.
And she's having to deal with, I don't even understand how to step out with two balanced feet without standing on one and pointing the other out to the side. Like the whole concept of stepping out and keeping your weight balanced. And for example, molleo, what they talk about all the time in Cuba, you know, that's like, that in and of itself is a head fuck, you know?
Yeah.
But she stays with it because somehow along the way, some light is ignited inside of her, right? And it's just enough to want to do it again. And then it starts to grow, the skills start to grow, the feelings start to grow. And listen, we all have areas that we're really naturally skilled at and areas where we're not, myself included, which is why when I go study in Havana, I get smacked around. But that's as it should be, you know. But you identify that, lose, and you keep going. And then you have this collectivity that there are other people around you at different capacities having the same journey. And this is what I've had to hammer home in people when they come in and they put their bottle down, they want to be next to me. No. We have different experiential levels. Work on yourself.
Yeah.
It's not about who's in front.
Yeah.
And if you look forward and you have peripheral vision of people who are maybe on this journey long enough to understand how to articulate the rhythm so that rhythmically you're not being fed what they say in Brazil, pipoca, like popcorn, like everybody popping off in different rhythms. Do you know what I mean? Like then you have more of a chance of being able to find that light inside of you because you're in that repetitive rhythm space. This is the power of clave. This is the power of agogo, you know. And also, you know, my work is not about teaching people to be performers or teaching people to go and monetize African diasporic dance. It's really about collectivity, humility, and experiencing oneself within this beautiful music, this beautiful cultural music, you know, and learning how to have more body skill,
exactly.
To have alignment, to have what Rosangela Silvestri calls verticality. You know, where's your center? Most people have no idea where their center is. So all of these things are happening. Technique is happening at the same time, and it's been so hard to get to this place where enough people understand my heart and my intention, because I have been accused of just being a complete insane person, like just the worst person.
Well, I think often when something is different or unusual, people are threatened by it.
Oh yeah.
But I think, this is what you're describing also is why, in my opinion, it doesn't matter what your starting point is, and it doesn't really matter what your potentiality or capacity is in terms of like you were saying, like every person has different possibilities in terms of technically speaking or physicality wise where they might be able to grow into, but it doesn't matter because the thing is like maybe where one person's kind of like big milestone is that when they walk, like you were saying, like when you walk through the office, you're in your alignment, you're in your confidence, you're holding yourself, and that matters, you know. But like whether or not someone can ever do this fancy skill or that fancy skill or whatever doesn't matter, because that's not really what it's about. And I think that's really unique, you know, like this ballet intensive I'm going to, basically if you are not at a certain level, you can't come, like, and that's it, you know. And I think there's so many things like that where by the time we're adults, the access is closed off, not just in dance, across the board, you know. Like if you want this job, you want whatever, there's like you have to be at a certain place, and there's no possibility of growth from a starting place of zero.
Well, I would add to that, the sadness of this is that this is directly what feeds into ageism.
Yes.
Because if you believe that you've reached your capacity to learn, you've reached especially your capacity to transform, you will start to, I don't know, the image that is coming to me is holding inside yourself. And then what happens when you stay holding? This is me, this is it, this is the end of the line. There's only one way to go. You're either going to blossom out or you're going to start to decay. That is nature. We are literally vessels of nature. And the idea that society has created is that you get this much time, that your learning years are as a child, and your productive years are here, and the rest of it you're supposed to sit on a lawn chair and barbecue meat.
If you're lucky.
If you make enough money.
If you're lucky, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And it's like one of the more, once again, many things that I've learned being in Bahia so much in my life and being in Havana, it's like, I mean, you'll see somebody, you know, teaching dance at the age of 75 and just being incredible, you know, and maybe they're doing that out of necessity, but regardless, it proves that we are not done. Now, in order to be a dance facilitator of adults and to convince the average American that this is the case, that I am a living example, you know, of that, I have to be a psychologist. And I have to be, you know, very clear in my communications, which I have been doing now for 25 years and made many mistakes, said many wrong things, but I've gotten to a point where I can get in there pretty quick. Then it's up to you whether you want to stay. And I mean, even like 3 months ago, remember that one woman came to the Monday night workshop and she basically left and wouldn't even speak to me. And she was so flipped out. Yeah. Like whatever was ignited in her, felt in her. You know, I have my own perceptions about where she was coming from. Often with people, it's like, I have a certain amount of skill. And you've just pointed out that there's 100 years more of learning to go. And I don't want to feel that way today, for example. When someone does that and then comes back, oh my God, they've won me over. Because I don't care if you can't move or you move really well. I just care that you're in it. You know, and not because I want your money, because I want you to discover. I want to discover. So this is the key, and to be able to communicate this to adults is really tricky. One of the reasons why I stopped drinking is because I felt like, well, you know, me and my Chinese medicine, being a fan of Chinese medicine, but I felt like, you know, the kind of intensity that even casual drinking was creating in my body was causing me to have a certain bite in my communication that I was already born with, having Scorpio rising, right? So it's like, oh my God, all right, so I have this amazing ability to communicate, but I also have this default into like being a little bit biting. What is going to tamp down that biting? Eating really healthy and not drinking is going to help. Also, like not drinking coffee all the time. Yeah. Anything that's going to make me sound more intense than I already do is going to help me help people. Yeah. So I had to commit to it. Like for me personally, I'm trying to live this, and I am. I'm not trying, actually. I am. So I think that speaks also. I think people can feel each other and they can feel their instructors. But back to the point that we were making is that an instructor of adults, if you want to be transformative without being woo-woo, you've got to embody it and you've got to be able to communicate it. And that means you need to understand exactly what you're after. And you've got to be after it in yourself. You can't be on some platform because then you're a guru. And that's not happening. I mean, no, you know. Yeah. I don't want to be a girl. I don't want to be a star. I don't want to be better than. I want to be in it with you. We are on the journey of life, and this is a path. And my job is to provide the environment in which people can come in and feel connected to themselves, to history, to each other. And I have to work very hard to make it so enticing that even if you're having a day of like, this is too much, it's so delicious, I've got to come back and try again.
Yeah.
And I watch you guys change. And I watch people cry and feel confronted, especially on retreats, and then break through. And then that breakthrough is like a flower. It's like a, I see the flowers in my mind. I can't remember the name. It's not a dahlia, but it's like, there's just a field of flowers on the other side of that discomfort.
Yeah.
And in this comfort-seeking society that we live in the United States, people really need to feel out of their depths so that they can understand that reaching is where it's at. Mm-hmm. Like, what that thing I posted of Miles Davis. Mm-hmm. If you want to stay creative, you've got to be about change.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that has to happen inside of you.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think people can feel that happening, and they can see it happening in other people around them. Like on the retreats, it's very inspiring because you see each person in their own moment of transformation, and then many people have come many times on the retreats, so then you see multiple chapters in that environment. And I think it's really, and I actually think a lot of people I started knowing that it was something that I needed to do, but I wasn't sure exactly what it was. I just knew that I was drawn to it in a very necessity type of way. And then you begin to unfold what it is for you in that chapter of your whatever, and then it changes over time. Like my discovery, and it has changed from day one to now in terms of what it's creating in my life, essentially, and in my growth and understanding.
But right there, Lauren, you just pointed out something that's so important as well, which is that often when we have intuition, it doesn't make much sense mentally or intellectually. It's like, well, why the hell am I so drawn to this? And then to commit to that thing without it making sense reinforces your capacity to follow your intuition. And the reality that I experience in my life, especially having grown up in India, is that intuition is directly linked to your body. It's like body talk. And it can guide you all the time. You have an intuition about it. A job, you have an intuition about a person, you have an intuition about a thing you want to do, you have an intuition about, oh no, I'm going to take a left, I'm not going to go straight. You start having this incredible, it's like a superpower, and the more you give it your full attention, the stronger it gets. And of course, it's equated with yin, it's equated with femininity, so then it's definitely swept aside as being ridiculous, or because it's not something that people can point to the sciences yet. I believe that day will come. But dance is in that realm of intuition. Why would an adult with no dance experience want to? Well, there's something there. I've had so many women come to me working privately with me in the last year, especially saying, I did all this therapeutic work, or I did this or that, or I had a dream and I need to move, I need to dance. Mm-hmm. And there's so many ways that we can do that. There's sweat your prayers, and there's, contemporary dance, and there's, investigate it.
Okay.
Extraordinary.
Sweat your prayers.
Extraordinary. Okay. 5 rhythms. And transformative. That lady, Taryn Toomey.
Oh, yeah.
There's all these things. But I just think that when people brand something and when people cultify it, it starts to get weird. Because when that happens, you're giving your power away and you're joining the collective projection onto that person. And having grown up in cults, that doesn't lead to your field of flowers. It just doesn't. So I'm really working hard to keep it real. And I make a lot of mistakes. But I think I've got my focus in the right place. You know, my intention in the right place. All I'm trying to do is bring us into a space of quiet, of breath, and of using the breath and the pause on either side of the breath to understand the stillness that is inherent in each one of us. And that stillness can be accessed in the act of doing something very physical.
Yeah.
And that's the work. So it's literally that simple. I like to keep it simple.
Yeah. And at the same time, people can get really strong in their bodies. You know, like, yes, there's this whole layer of what we've been talking about, but also just like practically speaking, your body changes.
Completely. You hold yourself differently.
And also you understand how your body works, like how to support your own weight, how to build strength, what areas of weakness. Like, one thing is, I think dancing, it really makes it obvious where your areas of weakness are.
Which is humiliating for people.
Yeah.
Until it isn't. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, look at all this work I get to do. You know,
exactly.
You just have to get on board with what, you know.
Yeah, with what it is, yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, gosh, yeah. Having seen the way that my body's changed, and also that many of the women that I know who have been dancing with you, their bodies have changed, it's really amazing.
Yeah, because we can change.
Yeah.
We can change at any time.
I think of, from a technical perspective, your methodology and your training, that's what it is that we understand positions of alignment, we understand positions of safety and strength that seem, when we're learning them, so simple, or seem like, oh my God, you know, like we do lunges every class in some of your classes. But then when you see it in practice like that and you're like, oh my God, without even thinking about it, I brought my body into a place of safety and strength before going forward.
Well, and it also, it looks clean.
And it looks clean, yeah. And also it's like, from that position, you can then do anything, you know? And so there's like all these moments of touching into balance and alignment.
Well, this is born out of my limitations. So when I was training really hard, I had so many limitations. I never could bring my leg up by my ear, or even anywhere close. I've always had certain areas of strength and certain areas of weakness in terms of like flexibility. But I had to deal with the humiliation of that, because most professional dancers, if you don't have certain capacity, you're just no. And when I was young, I had just enough to be a part of the group of the performing, but what I did discover was that I had grace, and that I had musicality, and that I had expression, and that I could train my body to be clean, to be in alignment. And then my limitation ended up being a gift, because I had to really work hard for all of that. And now it's just who I am.
Yeah.
And how I teach. And the reason I know that you can do it, you can do things with your body that I could never do with mine. Your back is so flexible, for example. How fun. You get to do those those lunges, you know, those hip lunges, and feel like a giant wind is blowing on you, and it's, you know, like in the Matrix, you know, like it's all about feeling.
Yeah.
And you've gone from not being able to raise your arms up and let them come down your body in a sensual way to just doing so much. And people look at you and they're like, wow. But my issue with people is like, don't start doing what everybody does, which is like, oh, well, she's just talented. No, she wasn't. She kept going.
She worked, yeah.
And I'm on her case about everything.
Yeah.
And she still keeps going.
Yeah.
Because she's getting something out of it that she needs for herself.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think that's the thing that people don't realize across so many things, including dance.
When we do things in life, I think we need to ask ourselves, what is my high value? What am I after? What am I after here? You know, and I am after very specific things, and I'm very clear about what those things are. And I have to keep my spear pointed and clean and sharp, because I can't fall off from that path. And you know, it's all of the things that we've been saying in this discussion. It's coming into yourself, your center. It's reaching. It's transforming. It's cultural. It's you know, and when you understand that you're tapping into something that is culturally very powerful, well, there's a respect component there. And I always have said, when we're in love, we pay attention. What troubles me as I move around is people fall in love with salsa, but not the people behind it. That doesn't make any sense.
Right.
One of my greatest joys in my work is that I have drawn so many people to come to Bahia, to come to Havana, to study, to engage, to learn from people, to stand on that. And it always affects their dancing in such a powerful way.
And also, it's an important sign of respect. I mean, obviously not everyone can afford to go to Cuba, whatever, but like to make an effort to understand.
Make an effort.
Even if you can't go there, but like learn.
Yeah, okay, so you can't go, get online.
Exactly.
You know, go look at, like, study.
Exactly.
The only way we're going to progress as a race of human beings is if we start looking at what is happening within and around.
Yeah.
And realizing we were all in that process together. If we don't do that, I mean, I don't even know. But I'm so old, it doesn't matter. But, you know.
Why? Because you'll be dead?
Of course.
Well, by that metric, we'll all be dead because life is like that.
Yeah, but I'll be dead first.
For a second. And then I'll be dead, and so will everyone that we know.
No, you'll be so bored without me that you'll leave.
Then I'll just die.
Yeah,
I'll be like,
you know what? God. Peace out.
I'll just be there lunging on my own, and then finally be like, you know, I can't take this
lunging.
anymore. I have to just
lunging on my own.